It's Tuesday, March 20th. I'm your host, Sarah Beal. On today's show, we'll talk to Town Manager Mark Ells, DPW Director Dan Santos, and Assistant Director of Senior Services, Donna Burns. But first, let's get a look at today's top headlines. A notice of adoption of fee changes. A public hearing on proposed changes to various permits and program fees was held on February 13th. Changes will take effect on July 1st for the following departments: Department of Public Works Solid Waste Division, Hyannis Water System, Regulatory Services Consumer Affairs, Water Pollution Control, and modified changes to the Information Technology Department's GIS Division were adopted by the Town Manager on Tuesday, March 13th. They may be viewed on the Town website at townofbarnstable.us or in the Town Manager's office. In the event of a winter storm, the Town will activate the Storm Alert feature on our website. The Department of Public Works will share actual road plowing activities. Also available to residents is a storm information line that can be accessed by calling 508-862-4636, which will be updated with the same information from the DPW. Our Town social media sites on Facebook and Twitter will also be updated during any storm event. The 2018 Department of Public Works Snow and Ice brochure has been updated, and you can view the brochure by visiting the Town website. The Hyannis Fire Department is offering Stop the Bleed training free of charge to anyone in the community who is interested in learning basic life-saving bleeding control skills. This program teaches basic bleeding control skills that any person is capable of performing. The goal is to create a safer community by empowering our citizens with the knowledge and skills necessary to save a life. They will be offering 2 classes on National Stop the Bleed Day on March 31st at the Hyannis Youth and Community Center. Class times are 10 a.m. and 1 p.m. Individuals can sign up by going to bleedingcontrol.org and selecting Find a Class, or you can email interest to mmedeiros@hyannisfire.org, or you can call 508-775-1300 and request the voicemail of EMS Officer Medeiros. Up next, Town Manager Mark Ells. Mark, thank you so much for joining us today. Winter Storm Skylar hit earlier this week, and we were dealing with the effects of it through Wednesday. Can we talk a little bit about how the town responded as far as during the storm and cleanup?
Sure. Well, I think we went into it seeing high winds, heavy snow, heavy in the sense of weight, wet snow.
Yes.
Significant snowfall at times, 2 inches plus an hour. You're in a blizzard condition at that point. And we're preparing as though it were a major snowstorm. Certainly all of the major models that we were looking at and news forecasts were saying that. I think looking back at it at this point, it wasn't as much of a snowstorm as it was wind and late winter conditions that combined we had over 180 tree calls, meaning trees went down, and with those trees went wires. And then in talking with Eversource, not only did we have trees with wires, but we had poles snapping out there. And so the combination of the two resulted in a widespread power outage in Barnstable and across the Cape that left hundreds of thousands of people without power for, in some cases, multiple days.
Right.
So it was a very different storm looking back at it. I think that from our standpoint, either way we prepare the same way. We go through really a 4-phase review of our assets to make sure we can deploy them. Then we're in a responsive mode, and then we ultimately look back at what occurred and do an assessment. And in this case, I'm not sure if they will have FEMA or MEMA reimbursement here for us, but we always have to prepare ourselves in a way that in the end, if there's any monies to help us with the costs that we've incurred, we've collected the information appropriately so that we can provide that to whomever would provide those funds and secure whatever reimbursements we can get. So it was an interesting storm, certainly scary for our residents. Kind of the third one in a row here that was a little bit different in the way that it was forecasted versus what we were dealing with. Public Works did an excellent job on the roads.
Oh, they did?
Yes.
It was amazing.
We did not have complaints about the conditions of the road, and I think we got about a foot on the western side of town, maybe 8 inches. Now it looked like less because it was very wet and the bottom was wet, and I think it was
sunk
kind
down.
of compressing
Yes.
as the storm went. But if you get into areas where it was kind of untouched, I was shocked when I actually did the sidewalk between my house. So I had to use my snow blower, and I was surprised at how much snow, and it was right at the end of the storm. So. Yeah.
Earlier this week, the governor was here in Barnstable County, and he was meeting with many people to discuss about power outages and cell phone service. Did the discussion talk about any way of shortening the length of time that people can be out?
Yeah, well, it was a meeting that was called with very, very important players certainly at the table, the communities, the county, the legislative body with the administrative body of the state, so the governor and the senators and the representatives, and then Eversource. So from that can come a very productive discussion about doing exactly what you just said, which is, okay, we can weed through all of the issues of data, et cetera, but how are we going to get power on more effectively when we have a situation like this? And that was really that's what I went into that meeting hoping we would be able to discuss. We did discuss that. We actually had the conversation relevant to, or I had the president of Eversource sitting next to me. So though most of it ended up having a lot of press there, so there were a lot of questions from them, and then each of the reps, the governor, and then each of the reps, and then Matt Beaton, who's the Secretary of Energy and Environmental Affairs, talked about the vulnerability assessments that we should be doing as communities in Massachusetts that they can help fund. But it became more of a dialogue. I got I gave the president of Eversource my card, and we began to talk, and then we met afterwards. And so we got to what you were asking about, which is, okay, on the ground, how are we going to get the power on quickly after this occurs?
Right.
It seems to be taking multiple days, and the type of storm that we experienced this week, though it doesn't happen every season, certainly happens. I mean, I worked through many of those events, and so we had that conversation. We talked about how we're going to better clear vegetation that's in the power lines, how we're going to talk about the process where when a pole goes down. In Barnstable, too, it's even more unique. Now, unlike other communities where Eversource does the power, Verizon owns the poles. You need to have a dig safe, and we're involved. It involves our engineering, DPW, involved in that. So you got 4 people involved. And how do we streamline that process? So it's not a matter of, are you going to replace? Yeah, you're going to replace the pole.
Right.
How do we do it in an effective manner so that they can get to the pole? Which that's where we play a lot. Besides the road cut side of it, we play a lot in. There needs to be good coordination and communication to coincide with the work they're going to do. So if they need a loader, if they need a truck to get them to a prioritized area, or any area for that matter, that's in place. Then looking internal to themselves, and with Verizon, I believe they actually have the ability to replace poles and charge back Verizon for the poles, but making sure that process is working. We don't want to get in a situation where they're sitting waiting on poles.
Right.
In 2005, that actually had occurred, where we were waiting and they were there and the poles weren't there.
Right.
And so the power was still down.
Yeah.
And so that is the sort of discussion that should occur post-event, any significant event, to say, okay, here's how we did it. It'll be a short discussion if everything went well and you minimized or you efficiently restored power. If not, it becomes a longer discussion. Vegetation clearing, though, is a big issue, and we really need to collectively, but by collectively I mean the towns, Eversource, the state, sit down and say, okay, how are we going to do this? How are we going to inform our public? Because when you start talking about trees, people get very sensitive about trees. When you start talking about trees that fall on certain roadways where there are certain jurisdictional issues about removal of trees, it even gets more complicated. You don't want to do that during a storm event. You want that all established. Actually, they want to coordinate with Eversources. They want to coordinate ahead of time with the towns better so they can go out and clear vegetation appropriately along our roads. And so that was a conversation that I got to have with you know, the Eversource person, and he gave me his contact, and we're going to follow up and get our DPW together with his, you know, vegetation department division. I think it's a division, and start to talk about the logistics of how we're going to do that. So from that standpoint, that was a good outcome that I had hoped to be able to have that conversation.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
I think it's important to have everybody on the same page and to take a storm like this and see what you can do better. You know, every storm is a chance to look and see how it went, how everything went, and what can be done to make things better for the next storm.
Right.
And it's always you know, there's always room to grow, and there's always room to be better about things. So
absolutely. Well, I think communication too, not just communication to let people know where we are, and that was brought up at the meeting, that the kind of the generic, okay, well, plan for multiple days scares the heck out of people.
Yeah.
It may be realistic, but you want to kind of weigh, will it really be multiple days, or is that just a safe answer?
Right.
Because the way that a resident responds, you know, may be very different than if they say, okay, it's really probably 24 hours that I'm looking at here, maybe 30, as opposed to 72 hours.
Right.
Big difference in, you know, how you're going to plan for that. You know, so that was discussed as well. And then any opportunity to meet pre-storm, you know, outside of the storm, not even in anticipation of one, so that we can better coordinate. You know, that's critical. That's critical so that we can be as efficient when we get to that. Hey, how are we going to get this on as quickly as possible? This being power.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's important to have.
Safely too. It's got to
Yes.
be safe,
Safe.
and we got to do it as efficient as possible.
Exactly.
So,
Mark, thank you so much for joining us today and chatting
well,
about
thanks
this.
for having me.
I really appreciate it.
Okay.
My guest today is Mark Ells. He's the town manager here in the town of Barnstable. Coming up, we'll talk with Assistant Director of Senior Services, Donna Burns, but first, DPW Director, Dan Santos. Dan, thank you so much for joining us today. Before we get into our topic for today's conversation, I just wanted to say, you know, strong work last week for the storms that we had. It was kind of an odd storm, didn't do exactly what everyone said it was going to do, and your team did an amazing job just making sure the roads were clear, and there was a lot of work that had to happen afterwards, and, you know, just did an excellent job.
Well, thank you very much. Appreciate getting that feedback.
Definitely. So we want to talk about today, there's going to be a public information meeting this Wednesday about the C Street Improvements Project. What can you tell me about this?
Well, the first thing I want to say is I hope it goes on. We're expecting another storm on Wednesday. So it's possible we will delay it because we want to make sure that people can attend. So anyone who's, you know, listening to this program and is thinking about attending that meeting, they should just keep an eye on the website, and, you know, we'll put out information about the meeting if it is going to be canceled with plenty of time, plenty of notification. Anyway, but we're looking forward to that meeting. And we've been working on a design project for a number of years to improve C Street from Main Street, South Street area down to Keys Memorial Beach. And right now we get to the 25% portion of our design, and we want to share that with the community and get input. Basically, a design is at a point where we took input, and there was some visioning that was done in the past, and we've taken that through a number of public meetings and created a project where we're going to be basically improving the road for safety, primarily improving the road surface and drainage, and improving the conditions for pedestrians and other, bicycles, things like that. So better road surface. We're putting decorative lighting like that is similar to on Main Street and Bursa's Way. And we'll be putting, there'll be sidewalks on both sides, actually a sidewalk on one side and a multimodal, multi-use path on the other, which is wider So that could be used for bikes and running and all that. That'd be on the east side of the road. And generally just improving the look of the road, be a lot of tree planting. And so we want to just share that and get some input, and that's the purpose of that meeting on Wednesday.
Wonderful. This is a heavily used road, especially in the summertime, because it brings you right down to, like you said, C Street or Keys Beach. It's also a way you can get to Veterans and Calmus. It's kind of the main thoroughfare if you're going kind of like the back roads to Craigville Beach. So it's a very heavily used area. So I think it's wonderful that you're taking a look at this. Who is the main focus of attending this meeting on Wednesday? Is it people who live in the area, or really anybody that has an interest?
Well, certainly anyone who has an interest. Is an open public meeting, but the people that have been involved have been primarily the residents. It's a residential area. There are a couple of businesses they've been involved, but residents who live in Hyannis and Hyannisport and in this area, and have been looking to the town to improve the safety and condition of that road. And so we've gotten some funding from the Chapter 90 program through the state. We'll be using those funds to do this work, and we anticipate the work to start in the fall.
That was going to be my next question. You're expecting the work to begin in the fall and continue through 2019. And it's contingent on available funding. So you do not have the funding now, or has that been approved?
Yes, we have the funding.
Okay, wonderful.
Yeah.
Is there anything else about this project you'd like our viewers to be aware of?
I think it's going to be a great project. We're looking forward to it, and I think it'll really be a tremendous improvement for that part of our community. So.
Yeah. I know that's an area that a lot of people like to walk in, so I think anybody who walks down that area will be happy to see any improvements. I know a lot of people like to walk through the cemetery, so to be able to walk to and from the cemetery with with nice level sidewalks would be wonderful. Okay, Dan, thank you so much, and good luck if we do end up getting a storm later this week.
Thanks a lot, Sarah.
Thank you.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Bye. My guest today is Dan Santos. He's the Director of Public Works here in the town of Barnstable. Donna, thank you so much for joining us today. We have quite a few things to talk about, like we always do when we talk about what's going on at the Senior Center. The first thing we want to remind everyone about is that the 50+ Job Fair is taking place this week.
It is. This Wednesday, the 21st, we're going to have a job fair that's geared towards mature workers 50+ who are looking for a job. We will have employers here who are anxious and ready to meet them and hear what they have to offer. And it is at the Barnstable Senior Center from noon to 3. It's free. And just come on in and see if there's something here that works for you.
Wonderful. What a great idea. I know there's a lot of people out there that may be looking for a second career or looking to change their career or are looking to get back into the workforce. So this is a great opportunity for those people to maybe find something.
Absolutely.
Great. We also want to talk about the adult day program that you run at the Senior Center now. This program has been run through the Senior Center for, 20 years, I think?
It's nearly 20
Wow.
years. 20 years this spring.
That's amazing.
It sure is. And, it speaks a lot to the town of Barnstable really was ahead of the curve and realizing that, there are people in the community that need their support. Maybe they can't stay home safely during the day, or they just want to get out. They're socially isolated. And we provide a great structured program that they can come and take part in here at the Senior Center.
Let's talk about some of the people that would be qualified to participate in this program.
Sure. We have men and women, and actually the folks in the program comprise 50-50 pretty much at this point.
That's great.
Most are age 65 or older, and they come from our Barnstable community, one of our 7 villages. And most of them require some support for some memory loss or a physical limitation.
Okay. And there's a lot of different services that they get when they're partaking in the adult day program. It's not just, you drop them off and maybe they sit around for a few hours. You guys do a lot of different things.
We sure do. It's a coordinated program of services and activities, and there is not a dull moment in the day. We have great social activities that we take part in every day that are interesting, they're meaningful, they're doable for everybody. It's a failure-free environment, and there keeps people engaged, having fun, using all of their facilities that they have. So we like to say, if you don't use it, you lose it. And we certainly use it here at the Adult Day program.
That's for sure. That's for sure. And you also provide transportation. If someone needs help getting their family member to the program, they can receive transportation through I believe it's a Silver Express, correct?
Yeah, we have a wonderful transportation program, as so many people no doubt have seen our vans and our little electric car buzzing around town. And many of our folks that come to our Adult Day program do get transportation. We pick the folks up in the morning, and they join us for a full day of activities, and then we bring them back at the end of the day. And it's a great service, and for many people, it's the only way they could get here.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk a little bit about the cost associated with this program.
I'll tell you what, this is, a hidden gem in the town of Barnstable. When someone is at home and maybe being provided care by a caregiver, a lot of the options that they have to get support are expensive. This is a very, very affordable program. I think people will be shocked when they find out that it's well within their means. It's, cost effective in familiar surroundings, and, for what they get and what it costs. And I would be happy to talk to them about it. And there are also some financial supports in the community that are available to folks, and we can let them know what those are as well.
Wonderful. And I also want to talk about the caregiver themselves, because this program definitely gives the caregiver a little bit of respite from, the hard work that they put in every day to care for this loved one, this family member that might be taking part in this program.
Thank you for bringing that up, Sarah, because that's a very, very important part. Naturally, the people that come to the program each day, they benefit by the social engagement, the physical activity we exercise every day, just, being in a nurturing and supportive environment. However, the family caregiver has that chance to go out and do something for themselves. If they're working, they can accommodate their work schedule better. Even for those that aren't working, you can schedule appointments for yourself, get a little free time, and you're a better caregiver, and you deserve to take care of yourself. So this gives folks an opportunity at a very affordable cost to know that your loved one is safe or your person is cared for in, a trusted setting.
Wonderful. The last thing I want to talk about is the free trial day, because you do offer, an opportunity for people to try it out, see if it's a fit for them.
We sure do. And, this is, if there's some sort of reluctance from folks, just about making that commitment, we understand that, and we want to make it a little bit easier to make that decision. So we do offer a free trial. No problem if it's not something that feels like a good fit for you. But we find that most people, that they come in with no pressure or obligation and get a chance to take part in the program, that there's a high likelihood they're going to want to come back. And I do want to stress that although we do offer 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, from 9 to 3 p.m., some folks come 3 days a week or, 4 days a week, and you don't have to commit to 5 days. So that's important, too.
That's good to know, because it might be a little too much for somebody to come every day, but coming in 1 or 2 days a week might be just the perfect thing that they need. Continuing this discussion about caregivers, the caregiver walking program with respite began at the beginning of this month, and how has that been going?
Well, actually, the weather has not been our friend.
Oh, okay.
As we all know, it's been very cold, and I think, just the conditions of the roads and whatnot is, I think people have been a little slow at coming out of those cocoons, but we're still there. This is a great program. It's a respite program. if you need it, you can bring your person with you. Or if you're a caregiver that just wants to come to our beautiful Hyannis Youth and Community Center on Bassett Lane in Hyannis, you may walk on the walking track. It gives you a chance to meet other caregivers. You can chat about things that only other caregivers can understand. Or if you don't want to chat with anyone, put your headphones on and just walk for an hour. Mm-hmm. And if you do need to bring your person to be able to take part in this, we will have respite available. However, I do ask that if you are bringing someone that needs respite, it's adults only, and you need to call me to pre-register for that so we can plan appropriately.
Right. That makes sense. You want to make sure that you have the appropriate activities and care needed to help that person.
Absolutely. And I should mention this is every Tuesday at the Hyannis Youth and Community Center on Bassett Lane right here in Hyannis from 11 to noon. And we're running that right into June. So if you haven't come yet, you don't have to, it's free.
Yep.
So you don't have to sign up. You know, as I said, if you're just walking yourself, come on in. And I'll be there. And if you need respite, you definitely should give me a call to arrange that.
Wonderful. Let's give everyone your phone number for if they have any questions about anything we talked about today, they can reach out to you.
Absolutely. My name again is Donna Burns. My direct line is 508-862-4753. And please feel free to, call me about any of the programs we talked about, or if you're someone in the community that has some questions or support, that's what we're here for.
Wonderful. Donna, thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate it, and I'll look forward to checking in with you again in a couple weeks.
Thanks. It's always a pleasure, Sarah.
Thanks, Donna. Bye.
Bye.
My guest today is Donna Burns. She's the Assistant Director of Senior Services here in the town of Barnstable. Now let's take a look at this week's board, committee, and commission schedule. Thank you for joining us today. We'll be back tomorrow with an all-new episode of Barnstable Today. For Barnstable Today, I'm Sarah Beal.